There are really two great phrases in this gospel. The first is the question, who do you say that I am? And the second, the challenge, take up your cross daily and follow me. So it is very simply put that we have to understand these phrases. Take up your cross and follow me, and who do you say that I am? And I think both of those phrases are open to a lot of misunderstanding. Let's look first at the challenge. Take up your cross and follow me. Now, when I was a child, I understand crosses in a very different way than I understand them today. For me, cross was, whenever I faced some kind of challenge, whenever I endured some failure, or whenever there was some pain in my life, I got the impression I should just grin and bear it, because that was my cross. And if I just took it up, carried it, all would be well. So I saw the cross in a different light, I think, than the gospel. Crosses are everywhere in our lives. They come and go in the church as we begin and end a liturgy. They decorate the walls of our home. We wear them around our necks. They're in our hands as we pray a rosary. Crosses are everywhere. So how do you understand picking up that cross? Seems a little different than what I understood about picking up that cross. It seems to me what the Lord is asking is very different than my limited view of a cross. Because in my understanding then, crosses never lead me anywhere but to difficulty. You see, then I see a cross not as a way where I might certainly experience God's love, where I might know God's goodness, and never would I think of a cross as allowing me to know God's joy. It just isn't going to happen. And in fact, what else happens is I begin to associate crosses with hurts, disappointments, failure, and suffering. How can any of that be anything good for me? How will any of that reveal God's glory to me? It just won't happen. And after a while, I begin to feel like, Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof. When I look up to heaven and in the play he prays, he says, Lord, I know we are your chosen. But for a while, could you choose somebody else? Don't you feel that way when I view crosses in that way? I say, all right, Lord, I've got it. I've done my share. I've suffered enough. I've bore the cross. Why are you picking on me? Why are you doing this to me? Because you see, I saw crosses as some random acts, as whatever happens to me in life. But in fact, crosses, I think, when Jesus is talking, is very different. He sees a cross as a way of experiencing God. He sees a cross as a way of getting to know who God is. He sees the cross as a way to goodness and joy. That is a very different view than I had. He sees that cross now bringing me closer to who God really is in my life. And that's what I need to do. I need to see the cross now as the result not of random acts, but of choices. The choices I make result in challenges. They result in some sacrifice. They result in some hard work. But these are the way in which I express that question. Who do you say that I am? Look at the choices you make. Those are the ways I show who God is. I don't say who God is, but I show it. Every time I make another choice, I decide another way of life, I walk down another pathway. That's when I say who God is for me, in the choices I've made. And in those choices comes sacrifice, challenge, love, mercy, fulfillment, a cross. So it seems that the crosses that Christ talks about are the ones that bring me to Christ. Let me experience God in a way I would never have experienced Him anywhere else. We need to look again at how we understand the cross and how we respond in choice to the question, who do you say that I am? Let me give you two simple examples. The first is about a father. His name is Ray. He has a young son, Devin, who is about 6.5 going on 7. Ray has not always had an easy life. He has struggled with his own addiction. He has been in rehab more than once, and he has lost several jobs and frayed many relationships, all because of his addiction. And yet, for the past 2.5 years, he's been clean and sober. His wife has died about 3 years ago, and he has struggled to be both father and mother for little Devin. It is on this one day when he recounted that his mother came to visit Devin and himself. His mother still was battling her own alcoholism, and so her visits were often a little tense. She came in and things were going well until little Devin was just more than a 6-year-old and was eating cookies when he was told not to and flaunting his disobedience. His grandmother then, out of control in this way, begins harshly to berate him, tell him what a bad child he is, how he will never amount to anything, and why he can't possibly listen she doesn't know. And she goes on to a rant until Ray intervenes and tells her to be quiet and leave him alone. As Devin is put to bed, Ray talks to him, and he says, "Devin, were you afraid when Grandma talked to you like that?" Devin puts a quizzical look on his face. He can't imagine why he would be afraid by her words. "You know," Ray says, "the harshness she said, what she told you, how she was going to punish you, and what she would do to you." And Devin shook his head and smiled and says, "Dad, I knew you would never let that happen to me." Ray carries a cross of fighting his alcoholism, of remaining sober each day. Daily he picks up that cross. He bears the cross of trying to be that protector and guardian of his young son. And in that process of that cross, what he has experienced is God's unconditional love. He has experienced God's power, even over an addiction. He has experienced God's love and mercy in a way that he never would have experienced it without those choices. He is coming to know God in the cross, coming to know the joy of being that parent, coming to understand the goodness of God within that cross he has chosen. And my second example is about another gentleman. His name is Norman. Norman is a financial advisor. He has been very good at his craft, but he's been equally good with his hands. He and his wife have raised 4 daughters. He had to learn to be handy at home. Money would not stretch that far. So he learned a lot of skills. Now he is retired. He doesn't see a lot of his friends sometimes, and they say, "What are you doing?" And he smiles and said, "Oh, I'm shuttling back and forth from one daughter to another." He is going back and forth and helping his girls, as he calls them. Some have just begun to make their way in life, so they are not well-rooted and certainly not well-financed. Others have made some rather poor decisions. And so he often gets a call to help with bailing the car again, and he reminds his daughter, "This car should have died a long time ago. You're expecting too much." Or he gets the phone call, "Can you quickly help paint this? I didn't know what I was doing. Can you bail me out?" This and scores of other ways he goes between his young children. He calls them his girls, even though they are now well into their adult life. Those are Norman's crosses. It's the cross of almost every parent. How do you love without becoming enabling? How do you help someone without making them feel so dependent that they never walk on their own? And in the process of doing all those things and stretching himself to a limit, how do you remain faithful to what you have and still take on more? He bears those crosses every day. But in the process, he has learned about a God who has unconditional love. He has learned to trust God, to hand these girls over to God. He learns he can allow God to guide them, allow God to help them, to shepherd them. You see, crosses are not just random acts that we find thrust upon us as trials and tribulations. They are not about hurts and disappointments and pain. They are about the choices we make to follow Christ. And in that way, we discover God's glory. We'll encounter God's goodness. We'll know God's joy. None of those and many others that I could recite to you would choose other crosses, but they are still crosses. So this week, with whatever crosses you have chosen, Bear them well and bear them wisely, because they will reveal to you who God is and help bring you closer into that goodness and happiness of God. Walk with Christ with the cross, because you know it'll lead you to God.